make it into a paid kind of patio usable space for people to have workshops up there or meetings up there or do yoga or have various gathering events up there. So it should be really, really nice. And then lastly, I guess too, is we have the peace sign out back. If you haven't seen it on the way out, you can go out the back way, and it's kind of been up. Basically how the Peace Center started was way back in the 80s, that big telecommunications metal receptor, and yeah. And so now we have that in the back since 2022. So we were thinking about this just this week. The Peace Park will celebrate 20 years next year, and the peace sign in the back will celebrate 5 years. So kind of nice, two nice commemorations for the community. Yes. Yeah. But anybody else? Yeah.
So that was what was up on the.
Yeah. So it was on Waterworks Hill. You know, I don't know if you know the story. It was the Northside Coalition would go up there and paint a peace sign, and then Quest would go and paint over it. And then the Northside Coalition would go back up there and paint over it. And then Quest would paint over it again. And that went on for what? Years and years and years. Until finally, what was it, like 1993 or so? Yeah. So the mayor was like, this isn't safe anymore, because it was almost like they had to use climbing ropes and things like that to get up there to paint it. And so then there were 9 peacekeepers who held on to a square of the peace sign until 2022. And then in 2022, everybody still had their peace square, and then brought it here, and now it's in the back. Yes, that is one of our to-dos, Flo, is on our list, is we definitely want to restore the peace sign. So that's something we are working towards raising money for as well, and restoring that, because it is a gem and it's pretty cool. We really haven't go back. Well, it's still up, so like we would just restore it. No, it'll stay here. Yeah. But it gets a ton of UV light, like you can see outside, it's super sunny, and it just gets baked, and so you need something protected or.
Well, this is a start.
Yeah, we're
waiting for Rob.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with something we did or anything. I don't.
Yeah, he has.
I don't think he has the fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I haven't heard from them. I'm sure they went around. Yeah. You want to say about when the physical team or oh no, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I just no, me either. So he's good at being here. It's just maybe traffic for a parking. Yeah. But see, if you're thirsty, there's water. There's one thing on water. There's water.
Just a chat. I want piece of question. Now, for plantation, I will be there for it. For chat, but you need to. That's not like I can make a point. And do that kind of go. Take over the rest. So, one is really inside. It's really a good way to take out the situation. I know. Yeah, I just watched your message. Yeah, I was like, well, I don't think I'm getting that. Oh, it was a jar. It's a fine thing. I do. I mean, yeah, I mean, then for that black. It's always the beautiful. And that's really don't see it going. And then that's 35. And it's just something. Yeah. And also the next thing happens like it's enough to say that to attention. They're not really look starting to be a great vision. So I it's awesome. I think okay. I should have really hard. Things felt why is it not why is it's I mean, because you know, I'm gonna be comes like right and more of a thing because it's Can I move it? That's perfect. No, because now it's now it's recording. Now it is recording. I'm gonna trim it later. That's parked and he is coming up the sidewalk. But you're not. Well, definitely. So it's part of the Robert, is there anything you'd like to say before we start?
Sure, it starts quick. I'm happy to see such a great crowd. I'm Rob McDonald, the tribe's communications director. Welcome, fair to say, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
I don't know if anybody noticed this was accepted at the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival, which had a great showing and it's been getting great response. And from there, I had an invite to watch show in Pablo, on reservation, Michigan. And the Flathead Lakers NGO asked to show it, so we showed it in Folsom Theaters. We drew 150. Wow, two showings at 85 months ahead. And then now I have a guy running around this big board who wants to show it there. I've got Kalispell, just down the street, the River Lions, they want to show it. And so I got a showing at the Wilma, that'll cost you $6. And it's just kind of growing, and in June, there is a whitefish festival of, this is smarter than me, the director, Dan Glick, got into it, it's his project, it's a collection of cultural, engineering, science, and music. It does, it's called the Westland Impact Festival. And their earlier one was called the Winterland Impact Festival, Jason Momoa, big stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Part of that. Angelina Jolie, I think, part of that. So this Folsom woman is really connected, and she wants us to be a debut of that festival. Yeah, so it's a story.
Even with the 9 months.
9 times is showing, we broke a record there.
Wow.
It's a story of success. It's a story I discovered. I served as communication director for the tribes for 15 years. And I had 15 more years to retirement. Something inside just broke. It was my midlife crisis, but I had to make a change. And I went to go work for the Natural Resources Department of the tribes in the new division of Engineering and Water Resources. They call themselves doers, bunch of doers, nothing. That's called. And I worked with the people that worked intensively on the water compact, on water measurement, on all these different terms on water. We measured water. Of course, we measure birds, we measure cows, we measure everything. Well, so I didn't know much about it, and then I finally kind of dawned on me after 3 months, 6 months of meetings. The whole reason our water compact, which is one of the most contentious issues in the state in 2013, 2015, and then up in Congress, was successful because a handful of guys we came together because one attorney said we should probably measure. And I'll let this tell the story, and I'll be here for questions afterward.
Something straight to the following, and see the.
Our in our everything else. No side of the by substance, but you have to get that. So to have citizens fishery in the creek or a river, can't be understand how important that is for the long-term survivability of the tribes and how important it was in the past. It was actually that you were going to survive. So, that existence, having that gap to the fisheries, it's paramount to make sure that they survive in the future because they kept our people. They kept our people who started. To myself.
Understanding of the elements of modified. So the one now atmospheric, surface water, soil moisture, how they interact with each other.
I'd rather do something that it's kind of a really specific branch of science, and like growing up going to high school, it's not something that you hear about. It's not like, biology or geology where they're pretty like big areas to study. But it's super interesting. Once you kind of get into it, it's like, whoa, this is like the whole, you drink water every day, use water to make coffee and everything, but you never really think about how important it is.
I'm really proud of what we're doing to help support our water rights. I always call it adding ammunition for drive. Water.
So the Flathead Indian Reservation for to be a permanent exclusive use abandonment.
I've heard people say it was a paradise, the richness of hunting, the natural beauty.
It sure is.
But these resources that we were so wealthy in, jealous eyes were looking envious to. Found ways to take those up. The whole concept of allotment, from the Western perspective, it was designed to put into the Indians' lives individual property ownership. The second reason behind it was they also calculated how many acres they should give each tribal member in order for there to be enough surplus land that they could open it up to a non-Indian homestead.
And that essentially caused a devastating blow to tribal economy, tribal life. Flathead Indian, also known as FIP, was authorized at the same time that the allotment of the Flathead Indian Reservation was authorized. And it was done so against the wishes of the tribes.
Construction started in the early 1900s, 1909, without any consideration of stream preservation, wetlands preservation.
They cut across every stream that come out of the mountains. Bisected every single stream all the way up. It's basically destroying the fish.
Essentially took as much water as all this. Where else is flat?
Here's where the strategy in the grip. The little chunks. This guy, strategy, really. Me and my friend would grab buckets and we find a bigger bowl for ourselves, or it's a lot. We kick out the words, eat as much as we did, try to crisp. That's what I grew up. That's my perception of heritage. So, it's grown to an irrigation project that is the largest irrigation project in the state of Montana, has over 1,000 miles of canal, 10,000 individual irrigation structures, and one of the largest features of that project is outlet feeder canal. This canal runs over 40 miles. There are 43 streams that come into the outlet feeder canal, and it kills most. Actually, they die right here in the canal. Most irrigation projects rely on one source of water, right? This irrigation project is unique and complex that it diverts water from almost every small stream on the reservation. So the project has had a profound impact on hydrology of the Flathead Reservation and the water resources tribes. So to protect the streams and rivers on the reservation, tribes invested heavily in measuring and monitoring. Tribes installed a series of gauges all across the reservation, both on streams and canals, that allowed the tribes to demonstrate that their fisheries and their water resources were being impacted and were being harmed.
When we started, we just had like a hoover in the creek called staff. Why did you set up a staffing? Tell you. So approximately years along with what are called. When the staff gauge in the ceiling, well, we tell them the stage of the street is at all times that know exactly what full information. The early years of waiting, we were real young and we were real gung ho, so we were a little crazy with it, but we were tying ropes on ourselves, and the person hanging on to it, or hold on to a tree, and running to our vests. Sometimes we were even wearing vests. We kind of thought we were like the mailman. You know, they always got to mail to do it. We go to the street, we got to get a baby check back away.
One of our first discoveries was that the Jocko River, which is the second biggest river on the reservation, was drying up this section. Completely dry. Devastating picture. The tribe funded actually against the United States government to protect the Jocko River. It's the United States government irrigation project.
In the Hellgate Treaty, our tribes agreed to cede 20 million acres of claims in exchange for certain guarantees. And one of those guarantees is written into our treaty, and that is the exclusive right to take fish in all streams running through or bordering our reservation. And so in order to do that and to exercise that treaty right, you need a healthy fishery.
The practical effect of that was for the first time ever, led an Indian irrigation project in another.
Midstream flows were substantially changing here. All the way back into the 1930s, there were gauge height sheets called stream flow wastewater. So flow below the last irrigation diversion is considered waste because it wasn't captured for irrigation, which was considered nuisance. So this transition to in-stream flows, which occurred in 1987 and 1988, was pretty dramatic. The ditch riders turn the canals on at the end of the day and go below the in-stream flow and then go back first thing in the morning and turn the canal back on.
The ditch riders are responsible for going around, opening their head gates, delivering water, irrigating. And it's a really difficult job for realize that. There's not really your thing hard to deliver it. It's really bad. Well, I understand where they're coming from. But when the ditch rider showed up, I told him, realize that you're letting flow go under the stream flow like Saturday night. Then you get out there early Sunday morning and bring it back up so we don't catch it. His face dropped. So how did you know that? You know, shot you. You shot. And I said, we don't have them get checking gauges anymore. Put in continuous recorders at the site.
Says similar to the size of the graph and how it operates. Penetrates, then connected to flow external that's moving up and down according to the depth of water in the strait. So for this day here, this represents the mean day. That day.
What's your thing here?
It's just a lot of labor intensive stuff. Yeah, there's history right there. There's history. Opinion strong, male, every single technical art, and weight of evidence. And the water rights settlement is a technically driven farm settlement that built on measurement data, which survived all sorts of peer review and technical critique.
The water resource team doesn't get the credit it deserves. It has done an incredibly good, scientifically based job for 30 plus years and just absolutely committed to doing good science for their purposes. And that's what the compact is based on. It's got a large body of science, but greater than anyone else in the state of Montana.
Early on in the compact negotiations, they had open meetings talking about quantifying and divvy up and how much of it is mine and how much of it is yours, and that kind of a discussion. And some of the elders came in, and for the tribes part, the elders said, whatever all of this other stuff they're talking about, go ahead and do that. As long as for your part of it, you protect the water. That's a simple idea. When water comes into your property, it leaves your property. But it means it should at least be just clean as when it entered your property. I guess you would do something to make it even better. It wasn't from the standpoint of protecting the water for water's sake. It was, look, this is important in order to maintain the system that is going to keep us here long. The longer we maintain this system, the longer we're going to be here as human beings.
So this is the headworks on Post Creek that leads into the Pablo Feeder Canal. And a lot of this infrastructure was built 100 years ago. And the state of this is pretty typical for most of the headworks across the project. For most irrigation districts and for most irrigation projects, the rehabilitation of those, the cost would fall on the irrigators. And if you think about the largest irrigation project in the state of Montana, the cost for that is absolutely staggering. One of the unique opportunities here is that the tribes, through the compact, have the opportunity not only to rehabilitate natural resource damages that were caused by the project, but also to rehabilitate and modernize the infrastructure of the Flathead Indian Irrigation Project where it makes sense. We can make it a better project, not only for people, but for fish as well. So we can make this a more resilient irrigation project heading into a more uncertain future.
In 100 years from now, people are going to be thanking CSKT people for protecting our fisheries, for thinking about keeping water in our streams to where our fisheries can survive for possibly forever, right?
As a tribe, we want our streams to be healthy, want them clean, and we want everybody to enjoy it. We want to keep it healthy, not for just the tribe. Why it lives here. And mainly people.
So yeah, it's always been about protecting our resources all around for people and place where we live, so that we can survive and perpetuate.
Thinking about the settlement or the work that the water measurement program has not done, a lot of the settlement relies on the water measurement program, and it relies on us continuing to produce and provide really high quality data. And that means opportunities for tribal members to have jobs where they can be outside, where they can measure water, where they can protect the tribal natural resource on the reservation. And I can point out many generations of tribal members who will come and follow in the footsteps that have been laid before them and continue to protect these tribal natural resources moving forward.
It's gonna be real hard to retire. I know for Flathead said, might be 80, you know. I really love it. Known for a long time. Let's see my name. It's not hard to start movies. There's so many stories, anecdotes, things that you first wanted to tell and at the cutting room floor. But this is an effort to kill so much in a short time frame. So thank you all for watching. They've known bits and pieces, but this kind of this whole framework together to give you a chance. And we get the debut, the first question in the Wellline, the big board for the Big Sky Festival was a woman from our league. And she said, at first I didn't know about the compact, a lot of scary things, and now you're digging up all this dirt and closed pipe to open canal systems. And you're seeing this and helps me say with confidence, I support the compact, I support what I'm doing. And it's a huge journey. Yeah. So the neighbor, the over the fence politics, it's just toxic. Yeah. And fear tends to be the first reaction. You know what fear generates. So any questions or
Yeah.
anything?
So I know about this. And there was something that came up not too long ago. I think it was in the legislature, either questioning the compact or something. I thought maybe the mood would be about this. Do you know what I'm talking about?
There's always something. And I think that the legislator out in Lake County, I can't think of his name right now. I just refuse to give Terrain Energy remembering his name. So head of the Lake County Republicans and Shannon Sharp. And he would regularly try to bring the conspiratorial discussions into the committees. And there's always a discussion of somebody trying to take it apart. There's a blog I can show you that is the centerpiece of every awful theory, conspiracy, and whatnot. It's an amazing collection. And sometimes they can create research where they go, well, this site has this information, this information. I discovered a document that the DNRC keeps of all of the existing water challenges in one of the basins, 76L, which is north of Flathead Lake, up in the Cal. So I didn't know that was filed yet. So it's a great resource. I always like to pay attention to what they're saying. Because during this process, one of my jobs, I work closely with legal, because I can't go on my own, was to people would, you're selling water to China. Really? There are people that will still stand toe to toe and say that's happening. And I go, we're not. Oh, yeah, prove it. What? Yeah, prove it. All right, pretty good water.
Okay, for sure. But like I said, the reason why I heard of this compact and followed some of the articles was because, and maybe it's all conspiracy or something, but there was something, I can't remember what year was the last one.
Sure.
But there was something in the legislature and it was a big deal. It was in the papers almost every day. So.
As it was going through in 13, it failed to get to the state. Yeah, and then it got through in
No, this was recent.
15, and then it went through Congress, but that wasn't as much. But now there is, the Montana Water Court is a separate entity from the water. And I'm trying to figure out how to explain those different pieces. So, the water court has to do a final adjudication.
And that's state.
That's the state process, which we all have to live with. Some confusion. And they've been doing that since 1979. And because of the compact and on our reservation, I'm pointing up there like it's a map. Let's say that's the reservation. On the reservation, it was in question whether or not the state could give a water use permit to anybody. Because we said, hey, you don't know what you're giving away. You know, we're trying to get our Federal Reserve water right to a state court system. But you're giving rights away, you don't even know if you have the right to do that. And so it was just held in limbo for 40 years. And so the two basins that cover the reservation, 76L, 76LJ, are last in line. So the water court just announced in April and then concluding this week, I think, the pre-adjudication of the basins that cover the reservation. So what's this mean? It means if you have, it's like FIP, it's a large institution, Flathead Irrigation. This whole 1,000 miles canal, there's a lot of rights attached to them. If FIP goes, I think there are water rights adjacent to us that overlap, incorrect. And it's really easy to figure that out because you look at all the land that's next to your interests and you can see a form that they filled out around 1981 to 1983. That form, everybody had to fill out. Not everybody did, but you're supposed to. And that form said, I am diverting water from this point. I am using this much 3 cubic feet per second. This is a legal description of my property, and I'm using it for irrigation, for single family home, whatever. So all these entities now are looking at these forms, and they're like, wait a minute, I can see by a map that this person's claiming that they're diverting water from this source, but that may have been 6 owners ago. And it's clear that they're getting water from that source. And this is my interpretation. A lot of people back then were going, you know what, ask for twice as much. Write down your buffer, you know, and say you want, so claim more. And as now, and we've been 40 years not having to deal with that. They're trying to deal with it. So a bunch of people, I think looks like thousands got an envelope that says you have been given a challenge to your water right. And people are freaking out. Yeah, I would too. It's a scary form. And so I'm actually working on this document that goes, okay, I'll read it, find out exactly what's challenging, find out what papers you have. You're probably not the original owner. Probably went through a trail. And be prepared for the next notice. You're gonna get a chance to bring it before the water court and the other side. But you also have all the information that they're facing or challenging on. So that's probably what you're hearing, Florida. And that's happening north of Kalispell, Whitefish, it's happening on the reservation. And what I've shown this at Yellowstone, the Yellow Bay Biological Center was a water scientist conference. I met the new professor at UM, who's from Tokyo, from Colorado, and a bunch of students, people. And one of the organizers pulled me aside and goes, hey, my neighbor up at Blue Bay just got this letter, and she's like, tragic on the get. Yeah. And that's, I think, the first reaction people are going to have. It seemed to come when I go, a lot of tribal members own private land, which is called simple P in legal terms. And it's a state-based water right, and at times they're getting called too. So a lot of the tribal part council, government's made up of 10 elected officials and administration that supports them. And so council's like, we have hundreds of tribal members to get this letter, but well, government's coming after me. So we're hearing it all over and explaining it's a state process. It's going to take some time. It's going to take months, if not years, for these to get organized, put into categories, dealt with either individually or clusters. Really complicated, serious ones, big ones are the probably have hearings, but the rest are going to be settled. So, I mean, suppose I bought property and I own simple feet. And suppose, and I share a well with 18 people and so only one of the other 18 is also a tribal member. And suppose they challenge our well. I don't know the history. I never looked into it. What if the person and the original source of the well actually was irrigation? And so we use that for stop water. But they got changed, the use got changed to domestic. Did he have proper paperwork in? I certainly hope so. But if he did, we got to deal with that. And then it's not like they're not gonna take away the water, right? They're not gonna leave us without water. They're not just gonna strip us of our ability to live there. There's a settlement and negotiations kind of process. So, but try to explain to somebody, crowd that's like, what are you doing to us? But that's what's happening. We're, the whole product's gone.
Yeah.
In the early part of the film, they talked about fisheries. Can you report on what is the health of the fisheries on the? We're looking at heading into the fourth year of horse drought, continuous of experience. We, by rights, could have made a call all along, even off reservation rights that we showed with the state. And, we got right up to the brink, which means people with junior water rights, younger water rights would have to stop. And then the senior water rights holders, whoever they have, authorized as primary tribal people, would get their last drop of use before the person junior right would get. We're getting tons of pressure from the resource protecting organizations saying, you have the power, shut it down, save the resource. And that's where our heart and spirit is. Always think long-term conservation. Our infrastructure was a little shaky, and we knew it would be like dropping an atom bomb on the site. Tribes file water claim off, I call it water rights authorization. And that sets off that crowd. Here we go. Your tribes are coming. They're going to get us all. They don't like us anyway. I'm still trying to learn to forgive columnist Flathead named David Skinner. I never met him. I don't know. He's probably a great guy, but he put into words, which is his job as a writer. It's an opinion piece. He put into words what so many in the community were feeling. I want to articulate that this is racial revenge. White people, the Indians were pissed. Now that they have a tiny ounce of power, they're going to stick it to anybody who is native. And he said this is racial revenge and it's sanctioned by gangs and it's part of the corrupt system. And it just ain't it kind of law. And you know, in 2023, the snow in the mountains melted by this time. Yeah. And despite coordinating with multiple federal agencies, it was an unheard of economic condition. And you spent that recharge bill all throughout the summer. Well, the curve completely dropped off the cliff. And so the water did not rise. And that community by the lake, accustomed to it will always be, even though they know our science is it's artificially held high. It's destructive to the shoreline, it's destructive to the fishery. And it's the license room for Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which empowers Energy Keepers, the facility, the company that runs the day on the tribes, has to take care of the erosion impacts, the environmental impacts, not necessarily economic impacts, but where the recreational interests balance all this. There's a continual monthly report. And Thurs said, you're doing great, but it doesn't mean there's not a group of organized real estate people upset with social media. And another group, there's two groups. And one's more into the anti-Indian organizations, so they get pretty hostile in their comments. And one's trying to be more above board, saying, we're really tight. So they try to pressure them. So all those dynamics are playing out. Yeah, Brian Lipscomb is the CEO, very articulate, he's an engineer, and he's fearless, and he's gone, I work for EPI for a year, because you guys need my help, because you're right. I work for him. He would go into these town halls, Kalispell, with 150 angry people, but he'd give them a 60-minute talk explaining, no fluff, here's what's going on. And the questions, okay, it's like, this is not racial revenge. The environment, the dam operations was designed about 40 years before that point in time. And now that we've hit driest 4 years consecutive history in this part of Montana, the playbook is adjusting under our feet quicker. You get them downtown University of Montana Climate Center. They have amazing data. And it's frightening. So as engineers, you don't go, oh, I wish things were better. I even talked to a group of national water management people, system all across the country. And I said, you all relate to this. You can hope and wish things were a certain way, but you gotta deal with the conditions of given. Then you have to manage them well, and that's where we are, explaining our approach and system coordination. And then you have the churn of the public, oh, yes, you're just kicking it away people because that you're all racist against this. That's a simple answer, and it is an answer. I say it's not quite accurate. And I can't say so my cousins part of that mindset. But my leadership, the people pulling the levers of power, but we have to deal with these things. And not play off your quarterback, they are definitely wrestling with that questions. Sorry, this year. Sorry, the snowpack and the rain we've had, how are we doing? I was just going over that and. And the past couple of weeks have been great. It's kind of like this curve where it peaks and it peaked like 9 days ago and then it down. And then you try to predict, will it drop too quickly? And it's like, will it hang out? 2024, we had less water than 23. 23 was the bad year. And so we're like, oh, no, we didn't feel it. You know, we had physical intimidations and threats and broken windows. So our offices, most people are getting so frustrated with the job, not making decisions. And so we want to avoid that also. But it was a very cold July and June, and it extended the line out like Phil. Wrong. I noticed they kept the lake from going down this full 10 feet, or went down 7. So it's easier to build 7 feet, go 10. Then they have to get a variance to not go down because it's flood coverage. Because if all outbreaks of the water comes, I one of the control, and we did grow the control systems that kept Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, team check systems. So it's a complex, it's coordinated, there's no guesses. And then that's why I love these simple answers at home. They always start with, oh, I know the charge up. Like Phil. With them for 20 years, I'm a travel member. I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. So it's reality.
I'm learning a lot of people in conspiracy people.
We all got
So
good.
now, but are there any like I don't know, when parents have land organized and you know, I'm not sure what it's like economically overall, what the trend is, but I know that a lot of places in Montana, farmers are aging out and their kids aren't going to farm anymore. And I know that a lot of people help organize like the one thing that sort of unifies all of us is how much we love having utilities there and how much we care. And so I guess I'm wondering, I mean, I had no idea that the dam system was so massive. I'm wondering, because I know that like High Valley's Land Trust and other places like that are doing these things with farmers and ranchers who want to conserve part of their property because they care about the ecology and maybe their kids don't want to farm or ranch anymore. And yet they still have sort of these economic interests that they have balance.
Conservation issues.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm talking about, but that's my question is, are there any landowners who are on the opposite side of the tension? Like, oh my God, we want to conserve this, we want to look at the tribes.
You'd be amazed how many there actually are that are true.
Awesome.
A lot. Just know that I hear the conversation in coffee shops and restaurants. They're the tribes. Yeah, what's our next move? And I can almost at this point tell how much exposure they have to somebody from the Native community. And the Native community is a vast wide spectrum. We have Trumpers, we have Republicans, we have military conservatives, we have Democrats, we have some hardcore Democrats, but not the extreme as you would think, or kind of socially conservative. But we have the whole wide spectrum, so you can't say, oh, they voted a block. Then I have people in leadership that go, well, presidential elections are not my government, I refuse to participate. And I have Erica Shelby is this go-getter, 6'2" woman, big family, and Elmo, and she's just like, don't you understand? I should have pulled out a quote from my speech, 1974, where he said, you cannot afford nothing. You can't be heard. Yeah. So to tell you the truth, here's the secret agenda of tribes. In the top 3 most important things we worry about, probably isn't money. We're not the best capitalists.
No, shit.
And that's the effect of me, my whole life, because it's like core values, even trying to work. And people, if anyone around you says, I don't say the tribes are up to, and the idea concerns making money, you can instantly kind of sit back and go, oh, this will be good. This is gonna be a yarn. Let's see what kind of gymnastics they do and paint it. That's how the Chinese want thinking. The primary goal is how do we preserve water, land, awareness,
Yeah.
that's to support the product for the long term. Why? If they supported us, we support them, just like that is
Yes.
to build the bull trout, spiraling down the drain, beat out by the invasive Mackinac trout. Millions put into all kinds of harvesting out the invasive species. Now we have, of course, the mussels, goes out of the all this. So money is important because you can't really function in a society without money. And so we have S&K Technologies, S&K Electronics, S&K Gaming. New casino Foreign Horses is opening up on Tuesday.
Beautiful, sorry.
I hope so. They're having the grand opening at 10. It's still building. I don't know. I hope that's Main Street because I want to go check out and see. So we can't tax. We don't have the ability to tax anyone. So I can't tax you. Yeah, I have no say on your private property within the reservation.
Again, I'm the believer back here. You should be able to do that.
Well, we don't mind. Yeah, white sweet rice. So we. Yeah, I need to influence Ricky. In fact, I went to the State Constellation Society and they have a, they talk about how do you send out a press release, how do you talk to the and then there was one I never saw before that said, you're on this list, you're old, you use the fonts. I'm wrong. I'm old. That's why your texts communicate, you're old.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I'm old. And it said that we've entered the space where people on TikTok, goes to Snapchat, getting hired. To be, they're influencers and they have a crowd. But companies are finding ways to form contracts going, you're independent, you say your thing, we have common values. We would like to have an agreement with you where we supply information to you or product and just ask that you put exposure to it. We're not saying you have to love it. Basically, that's like, and I think that shot that's already formalized to that degree. So I'm looking for an influencer that, let me educate you like I'm educated in all these tribal issues. Yeah. And you can go, you know what? I didn't know that.
That's a really good idea though,
That is.
to like get information out there,
And part of it is the water compact because, I love Dixon Mountains.
Oh, yeah.
They're the best.
Yes.
The guy who grows them, is a sweetheart of a man. I think he gave his shirt off to help Eddie Brennan. He stood in the camp of, you're gonna destroy my farm. I'm not gonna get water. I fight you with every ounce of my being on this water compact. Because I've been told and I believe it, this is the end of my career. And the end of existence.
Like,
Harvey.
Oh, yeah.
I still. Yeah.
Is he still?
I think so.
I remember.
But he wasn't alone. I remember when we brought this science forward, the state, when we started talks back in the 80s, water compact. And one of the first meetings, we brought 2 buses of people there. And one bus was all the traditional leaders, drum, regalia, our attorneys, council, administrators, and help out in this room. There's a crowd, hundreds. Whenever we made a point, like our ancestors said, never negotiate for water. We started these talks on the premise that all water is ours. In the state of Montana, unfortunately, they say all water. And so we make a point like that, and the drum group would get, and you can see the guys holding the meeting going, oh, we can't talk this guys. So we're gonna actually hold off on dealing with your tribe, and we're gonna go deal with these smaller tribes. Because they're 95% tribal, they're not checkerboard. Yeah, history.
yeah,
So we're gonna get better at it and circle back. And it's just so much contention. I remember when we started, okay, let's start the runway CSKT water compact. And we presented our data to the state. The state's like, well, we have a model and we'd like to bring to you. It's very good based on guesses, right? Yes. Top men on it. Well, here's 30 years of our data.
Good.
And here's our conclusion. And they're like, they went, okay, time out. They took a year. And we provided a computer, a basement office, they could come in and they collected all the data. And then they gathered it so they could take it back and they could attack it, challenge it, pull it apart. And they found the best person on the planet, it's a professor at the University of Idaho. And he came back after several months and like, this is the best data I've ever seen this. And so that brought the state around. The state said, okay, with this data, here's the model that we see this working. And I remember those big hospital crowd, hundreds of people, some of the biggest irrigators and Harvey crowd, and some of them weren't as nice. And we had some of the mean tribal people show up looking for, I'm like, no, don't wait. I don't want that. And because, then the state presented an hour and 25 minutes data, and it was so dry and so boring. And I remember I could hardly follow it. And I remember Boone Cole was a big irrigator, and he had his mock boots on. He's a big, impressive physical specimen. And he's got a big gut. That kind of came out. And they always do that. I love the theater of these guys because either they're holding stacks of papers they're falling or they whip off their glasses. Sarah, playing Indians do that. It's like, I heard all your science. But my gut says it's all bullshit. I looked over at the state guy, go, piece of cake, huh? Yeah, we'll whittle. And remember 2015 when they did the yays and nays, they filled the chamber. Yeah, and they didn't even have time to get everybody blind to go up and testify, yes or no.
Yeah.
And there were 3 Native guys from my tribe, or just extreme personalities, and they're against the compacts. And I think they're very creative little academic ideas. Just nuts. And I remember all the people in line to say they're against it. They're like, let the Indians through the Red Sea parted. And one of them named Sonny, he never wears sleeves. He's got a certain mustache. He goes up there and goes, my tribe is so crooked, they can kidnap children. Oh God, you can see the press was, all over the place, of course. I remember some of the key people on the press when they advantage. They're still children. Bad thing, bad idiots, I'm scared. So your politics. And the whole point I was trying to make is we hired people to carry the message for us. And I remember I oversimplified it in my version is we have a bunch of mean, primarily Anglo irrigators are adamant against this. Don't even like it. They'll say it's not racial or whatever. So we hired mean looking, white, Anglo irrigated talking, knowledgeable people to carry our message. Yeah. And they wouldn't hear it from me, but they'd hear it from that's the treasure. And I was just like, that's cognitive dissonance at work. Yeah. And so why not hire a YouTube influencer? There's an influencer you love. They talk about Flathead, Mission Valley, Simulate. Yes.
So have folks like the Dixon Mellon person, have they changed their viewpoint?
Actually, they recruited new people. There was Sago showed up. Bill Sago, he is a legislator out of New Mexico. 80-some, deep has a lot of engineering firm. And he controls multi-levels of the engineering firm, his children. Big bucks. So he showed up. Goes, this is a nice place. I'll have to get a plate home. And they're like, oh, out of towner. Hey, let's tell you what's going on around here. And he's like, what? These tribes? From a place with these tribes. They can't boss me around there. They can't boss me around here. So these billboards pop up and say, water right, got water rights? I'll help protect you. So he was the white knight on a horse that swooped in, and the anti-Indian groups snatched him up. And I remember the Lake County leader interviewed him. And it said after the compact was passed and the compact board was created, it's not in existence anywhere else in the country because they're empowered. If anyone walks through the door, a new water right, a change of water right, or replacement, be it state water right, reserve water right, federal water right, they were Because if we didn't do that, we'd have two courts making decisions that they consult each other, and these systems wouldn't work. They'd be dragging. We're not gonna have, so we do this for missionary power, consumable, wildlife, shoreline protection. We have a mix of tribal and then non-tribal. So you have two picked by the governor, two picked by our tribal council, and those four picked we did. That board decides all water rights. Our meetings are broadcast, and it's going along. So that's actually happening. Porter talks to Seiko, and he goes, "You say the tribes are trying to take all water rights, limit water rights to people like Mr. Reynolds." And he goes, "Yes, that is very true." Well, this board just gave 10 new water rights and expanded the use and get 6 replacements in the first 3 months. That sounds like the opposite of what you're saying. And he did that professional baseball thing. He just repeated the same thing. Yeah, they're taking everything and it's not right. Well, actually, the facts say that. Well, they're taking everything, so it just doesn't penetrate. So Sago just sold all the property. Go back. We bought some of it. We kept his staff on. Same old thing. But there are still people that are like, every chance they get, this is the most corrosive governmental. Dane sold out everybody. This just shows that the system. We don't have any billionaires in the population. We don't have podcasts. We're hardly popular. After the whole cheeky thing, we're not his favorite people, although we're starting to be at Rose. Yes, sir.
Sorry, but I was wondering to hone in on something you said was near the end of the film, which is wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing it. But one of the protagonists, I've forgotten their name, I'm sorry, but mentioned the potential for modernizing the irrigation system throughout CSKT. And I guess sort of to your point of just the initial council granting further water rights and updated water rights. And I guess, could you talk about like the more positive potential for making all that agricultural land on the res that's non-Indian, but making it, more resilient in this future we face where, regardless of what we do, we might not have enough water to stay up.
Good news is we're water rich.
Yeah.
Bad news is a lot of the farmers who are longtime farmers are talking about breaking up their properties. And the real estate pressure is stronger and stronger. Now the price is kind of dipped again, but it's kind of frightening because we had a deal with the tribe of Lake County called the density map, and it encouraged growth in areas that already had growth and discouraged growth in areas that are either sensitive, needed protection, or just because you don't want to be confident over there. And Lake County pulled out of that agreement. That was hailed as one of the greatest successes of the tribal government, county government. And new leadership came in and went, "This is BS, we're getting rid of that." And so that's been the dominant point of view. Compact, I'm grossly simplifying, and our attorneys would pass out. But for the sake of time explaining it, the essence of the compact is the state would not allow anything to get through it unless they got guarantees that the existing irrigation community was kept whole. Yes.
So it cannot be short.
Right. So everybody who has everybody has a dwelling, a house, single family house or condo, they're protected instantly. Your irrigator, you're guaranteed as much water as you have. It won't go down. If you need to grow it, here's the process, you can ask for more. And once that's achieved, then we get to claim the other water. Problem is it's over allocated for the water to claim, which is the built-in incentive. We got a $1.9 million settlement, which sounds huge. It's a pittance as to the damage we showed Congress of them not taking care of a resource, not accounting for money. So, okay, we got a few pennies on the dollar of what damage was done to us, but so we got twice the range returned to us. That was a big story. And that was part of it.
So it's part of the compact.
Right.
Yeah.
Risk restoration question.
So that's true.
That's part. There is Seth Makepeace is not tribal. He's from back east. All I know from that point is rumor because he'll never just tell me. But piecing together, he did tell me his father went to Yale and was in a small lacrosse club, Bush Senior. That he's got very high powered family members, some in the ministry, some in business. His brother's a trader. he led that life and ended up in Seattle. Now he drove, growing your hair long, smoking dope, talking about much country. Yeah, that's how he ended up at the University of Montana studying geology. And he stumbled on this new science of hydrology. And I think he's a savant. He's at 160, 180 in Canada. And he's quirky. It's different. You can't just sit down and conversation with him like he's. But if you're ever in a pickup truck with him driving, it's the most amazing time of your life. The stories. This property was bought 53 by the Johnsons. They came from Sweden. They bought it from a local here, and they ended up putting a wall. And just on, and he did it for thousands of places.
Yeah.
And now he has that memory of water rights. We're the homeland of dogs. People who train dogs. They decided to move to our reservation and make it their national headquarters because they were told that they can take property that's got irrigation. They can do a big pond so they can train their dogs in. But that's a change in use. But since there was 40 years where there was no policing of these, what a paradise. It's just like Yellowstone. You do whatever you want. Oh, you could because we're pillaging our resource and our rights. So anyway. Was it talking? The that's the general with major firm, a staff of 15 brilliant hydrologists, scientists, wildlife experts, plant experts, to build one-way projects that cover the entire reservation, break the reservation into like 8 different zones. And then you look at the footprint of the irrigation project, and then you look at the weakest points of the irrigation project, look at the largest structures where Casey was standing on. Civil War era. Put up and you can see the hillside breaking, and then you go, okay, Jocko Valley. That is aligned perfectly with the bull trout. That's their pristine. We start there. We already had projects underway. So let's identify all the projects there, 35 projects. That's probably about 200 million, $20 billion right there. Well, we can't do that because that's only a. Okay, so which ones are most feasible to do? So they whittled down literally hundreds of projects and then tried to figure out how do we implement 12 projects a year and spend about $50 million a year to do these. So we finished one in the Jocko, which was a new headworks. They had to take out the old one, new one in, efficiencies went up. They have open canal in our lead 6-phase program. Seemed like a simple one, hits so many hitches with the federal right of way concerns, the contract structure, the most inane things that you scream. Well, they're in phase 4, phase 6. It looks like giant gophers have dug up miles of the canal. These giant black pipes are being put in pressurized, but I've heard Washington state level irrigation. Incredibly efficient. And so we've done studies beforehand. We're doing studies after the implementation of each new project, so we can check the efficiencies. Right as we started, you put in 100 gallons of water, you might get 20 gallons out, 50% efficiency. After we get a dozen of these projects done, I don't know. Let's just say hypothetically we get a 5% raise. That 5% water we get, they can divert to our uses. Well, should we put the trees, the strips, and they continue on and on. So this is a celebration movie, but media called me after the compact passed. How are you guys gonna celebrate? Have a big blowout? This is the opposite this morning. We're sad for the compact. It doesn't, it had to be done. It was the best we could do in that environment, which we didn't choose. We didn't want it. We had to give up so much. And I watched leadership for my first 15 years anguish over, we go to court, we shut down the whole irrigation system. In 30 years, hash it out in court for an imperfect solution, or do we negotiate? And then we decide how it will come out. But to negotiate, we gotta make the state happy and push the for system. And I watched multiple councils get asked that question. Legal laying out the options for roads. We can do, then those 10 people elected. Some have college degrees, some don't. Some are ranchers, some are not. They always decided to negotiate, which was tough because their constituencies, the armchair quarterbacks, hell no. Stick to your guns. It's our water. Goes back to the film. It's our water, but the system got to take action to protect it. Did you get systems? You see trying to try to buy up some of those allotted areas in state reservation. And somebody could loan us a good $100 billion, silly it ain't good. We have been buying back our reservations since 1935, when tribal council was established. We're the first tribe in the country to take advantage of the Indian Organization Act, 1935, which said tribes, if you turn your back on the traditional ways, hereditary chiefs, and you adopt a democracy, for anybody to be elected to leadership, then we'll give you jurisdiction and control of what lands still remain. And the first act of the council was stop the land deal. Stop the homesteads. What can we buy back? So yeah, we have a budget to buy back. And real estate people, despite how many ghost companies we put out, send it out. Or there's this perception that we're driven millions because of the uranium mine under Vice, right? So yes, and then there's I can throw a rock in the building. We have 1,400 points. Anyone I would hit, I grab and say, what property did we pass on buying? Oh, we didn't buy this. I can't believe they didn't buy that. So we have our internal armchair quarterbacks. Well, we should have bought that, should have bought. There wasn't the money.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Hard to do everybody.
yeah, you have to go.
Oh, I got it.
Okay, I'm conscious that this gets into the issue of tribal sovereignty and trying to get that say these days. Have you think about that, the big, Milk River, I think, or Snake River, when they undammed it, that was a big nonprofit that took on the cost of doing that, and that's how they were able to do that. Has the tribe any success with like, and like in Polish, the solidarity, thing, we've been able to buy a couple houses so far for people for like housing. Like, are there any like nonprofits or mutual aid groups that could help?
Steve, I think great. And what's funny is I get a call from churches. I go, hey, we got 14 able-bodied college students. We come and help an elder rebuild their steps.
Yeah.
And it sounds wonderful. The reality is the insurance liability. Formally adopting them into, we would have to do a temporary emergency hire so they'd be covered by our insurance in case liability issue. So it's like, it's not worth it. Like a $6,000 investment per person. So it's not really a gift. But then sometimes they don't want that explained to them. They just want, we're trying to be nice, boring us. In reality, it's
So what about,
take much.
yeah,
But
very cool.
we're actually developing a nonprofit entity because people have donated paintings. Can I show them? Tell you donate it's a kingdom of it. And then I had to work hard for our accounting department to write a letter from the tribes saying we acknowledge this donation and we still don't have the state 401c3 status. But we have letters that say we are a government.
Yeah.
And the IRS, most of the time, says it's a donation and you can take it as a tax write-off, but sometimes IRS challenges it and they fought off clarifying that. So it's complicated. Everything in the country is just complicated.
I've heard of tribes having like a honor tax and you would pay as a mutual.
We never gone that route because the hostility.
Yeah,
Yeah, we talked about it.
Well, as you're saying, everything is really complicated, and I grew up in Missoula, and I never really learned about any of this. I just learned about the Dog Act, I just learned about allotment pretty recently. And I think part of what you're saying too is that a lot of people have this fear-based mindset, and it's based in not really understanding or knowing. And so I'm wondering if you have different resources that you would recommend in terms of like how we can gain that information. I know Chiefy Community Resources, they've been offering classes. I've learned a lot through them. But it also sounds like part of the solution is like understanding.
Here's one that's not tribal. It's a podcast called Land Grab. It was a Missoula kid, a Seattle kid, and they had some privilege in their life. And they said they're both fascinated with this history, and they told a 10-part podcast. One was now lost. And they talked to some tribal leadership, talked to a bunch of other people, but they told stories and did it together. That's history I didn't know. The reason the reservations cracked open is because of Joseph Dixon. Joseph Dixon was from Carolinas, moved to Missoula because his uncle's a big shot attorney here. And everybody figured out, oh, business with Junior, get it in with big attorney. So he was very successful very quickly. He took a job as the Indian agent to protect the resources of Indian people on the reservation. So he did it. He wasn't very good at it. He studied, and the podcast mentions a part where he's reading the treaty signed in 1855, and the accounts very well pages away. And he went, I see where I now have the end break up the reservation. And that was his goal, to get at these economic riches. And what we didn't put in is the kids in town, the Beckwith family and the other markets, they had this thing where they were, hey, you got land now, Mr. Indian family. You're gonna need seed and shovels and equipment, so we don't have any money. Well, there's this thing called line of credit, so we're gonna stuff, so that. So a year later, they come back, so, well, you owe us all the stuff, we didn't make any money. Good at this. Well, now you're going to jail. Oh, we don't want to go to jail. Well, that's good. We have a new law here. That if you sign this piece of paper, we get your land. Yeah, you can live on it for a short time. Oh, get your land. We're still struggling with the concept of ownership. Like, this piece of paper says you own what the creator gave us. Yeah. Okay, sure, we'll sign it. It's just a foreign system. So from 1910 to 1935 is the biggest loss of our land through those processes. It's so, Salish Kootenai College has an amazing bookstore. The president of Gonzaga. Okay, I don't know. Never mind, I don't want to tell you this story. It's true, I witnessed it. I love the president of Gonzaga. I don't love the person who was a filter telling her about the reservation. The man of the cloth, and I'm like, father, that is so racist. And who are you hanging out? Great as you know that. That's true. I'm an expert in the tribes are going to destroy Lake County next. Under what? Oh, and I learned, sure, 15 years before I came to this, I learned through Bill Moore, Mary Nations reporter, and he taught me how you take a philosophy. And if you kind of get it, you can nail down the touch points like a thinker. So when that philosophy appears somewhere else, you go, oh, that's so-and-so. He's water temperature. And he's tied back to any part of that shooting simulation. So this man of religion was spouting well-known anti-Indian organized settlements. And he's always given, I've heard our sermons, and the churches have gotten very conservative, politically, religious in some cases. Basically, he is the respected guy to the president of Gonzaga. And I was like, I have to jump in. And kind of got into it. And, but also you have to be courteous. And lunch with them afterward, explain the complications of the communities. So that's why I'm so overjoyed you guys.
Yeah.
Spend a little time. And I think this gives you framework to learn more. CSKT.org is growing. Just redid the website, trying to put more, we're organizing the water site. Because there's water registration, there's the water rights office, which handles the off-reservation water call, and then now this state adjudication process, trying to get information out. So.
DSKT.
Let's start working at RJ. So, yes, my wife's waiting for me for beer and pizza.